Time to talk about the race for 2026 here in Congressional District 3. Joining me right now is Republican Tera Anderson, who is running in a very crowded field. Tera, it's good to see you once again.
Thank you very much.
Last time we chatted, you were running for mayor, but now you're running for Congress. Before we get to some of the issues of the day, why run for office in Washington?
I was encouraged to. There were a lot of folks that were proud of my efforts running for mayor, although I jumped in late, and felt I still had something of value and of relevance to this seat and the issues facing Nevada, and so here I am, willing to serve. Well,
let's talk about some of the issues of the day right now that would be tied to whether you're in Congress. Right now, we've seen the U.S. action in Venezuela. The President Nicolas Maduro captured by the U.S. military special forces, and there's been some consternation on Capitol Hill about whether Congress should have known beforehand. If you were in Congress right now, do you think you should have had some inkling that this was going to happen before the military is used in a foreign country?
In a perfect world, I think Congress and the executive branch should absolutely have a collaborative, transparent relationship. The dysfunction in Congress is one of the motivating reasons why I want to run. This was a surgical effort and a precise one by the president. And historically, American presidents have taken those initiatives to exact an effort.
But do you think that there should be some level of conversation with Congress, even on a classified level, beforehand, so that it seems like they were blindsided this time, that they're not blindsided?
Every reasonable effort, yes, so as not to compromise the integrity of the effort.
Right.
I mean, what President Trump accomplished is truly impressive, and he's been very consistent about America first and not sacrificing American lives, and he has been exceptional at that. And so I trust his effort, and the results speak for themselves.
Well, let's move on. I mean, if you're elected to Congress, presumably the U.S. would still be involved in Venezuela, in a foreign, whether it's a conflict or an engagement in Latin America. How should the U.S. deal with that? How should it manage whatever happens in Venezuela? What's the best way to go forward?
I do not believe the intention of this effort was to move into nation building, and so I think the mission critical next step is to ensure that the people of Venezuela are poised to be the stewards of their own recovery and their own future destiny. And so that to me is the critical pivot point now.
There's another government shutdown potentially looming in Washington. The deadline for the funding package is January 30th. We've already seen the effect of a government shutdown nationally here in Southern Nevada as well. The holdup is these ACA, Affordable Care Act, Obamacare subsidies. Would you support extending these subsidies?
The most important thing is that Americans and Nevadans cannot absorb the risk of the rising costs of health care if this isn't addressed. In the aggregate, the Obamacare policies were flawed from the onset. That's a broader renegotiation and restructuring that has to be addressed in healthcare. But in the near term, yes, if health insurance rates are going to skyrocket at the tune of $700 to $1,000 a month for families, that's unacceptable. So Congress needs to get very serious about negotiating solutions, and the infighting and the bickering and the theatrics really have to end.
You know, you're talking about the bickering and the fighting on Capitol Hill. That's a world you want to go into right now. Just before we talk about a couple other topics, what do you hope to bring to or change in that legislative environment?
Professional adult behavior, for one. Look, these are complex issues, and I think we need people who are quality and of capable and relevant experience to negotiate some of these deal points and defend the merits of them, so that elected officials and the people see the value in those pursuits. And right now, I think people in Congress and in DC in large are more interested in winning political points in the court of public opinion than they are in delivering results. And there's longstanding grievances, and this is why, some people are sticking around a little too long in public office.
We'll talk about the lawmaker you're trying to unseat in a second here. Another topic is the issue of tariffs. Obviously, your background is business and land development, and we've seen the impact of tariffs on the Southern Nevada economy and tourism. What do you think is the best way for the White House and the Trump administration to handle tariffs and trade moving forward? And if you're elected to Congress, what voice would you have?
So the genius of what President Trump has pursued on the tariff side is he's forced conversations that have long been neglected. He's forced our allies and other nation states around the country to back to the table to revisit what is a reasonable, equitable exchange of value in our global economy. And so I intend to be participatory. I think they need those tariff agreements need to be underwritten and scrutinized to make sure that the economics make sense. But I do think it was a brilliant move on his part to force the conversations that have just been sort of status quo for decades to our own detriment.
Do you think the threat of tariffs is the best way to get people to the table? Would you take a similar tactic in Congress, a threat about legislation to try and get people to the table, a political discussion? So
I think you have to put everything out on the table, but those are going to be uniquely shaped by the dynamic of those respective relationships, right, between us and each respective nation state, right? So you have to look at what is the negotiating posture? Where is there an opportunity for us to force the conversation that is of shared benefit and not just to the detriment of the United States? We've been carrying tremendous costs to the detriment of our country for a very long time. And I respect the fact that President Trump has been willing to take on very difficult conversations that many presidents in my lifetime have left ignored.
One of the discussions we had, I think, when you were running for mayor was this idea of fiscal discipline. And I would imagine if you were elected to Congress, you would try and bring the same level of fiscal discipline to Washington, D.C. Define fiscal discipline. What kind of items or what kind of issues would you like to attack?
A balanced budget.
Okay.
Truly. And obviously,
that's easy to say, hard to do.
100%. But here's the problem: Congress has been acting like children with a limitless allowance. These are taxpayer dollars. There's proof in recent months and even with DOGE efforts that I don't know that the government has been wholly responsible in its expenditures and making sure that how we're spending money is of value to the peoples whose money it is, the taxpayers. And so having reverence for that is mission critical. And I do think we need an infusion of new blood and new energy and new ideas into Congress so that that becomes a priority again, because our financial health is something that my generation and future generations are going to be burdened with, and it is something that needs to be taken very seriously.
As we mentioned, it's a crowded field in the Republican side for Congressional District 3 to try and unseat the incumbent Susie Lee. Many Republicans want to do the same thing you're doing right now. How do you think you stand out from the rest of the field? So
when I was encouraged to run for this seat, I first asked myself, am I timely? Am I relevant? What am I bringing to the conversation that helps meet the needs of Nevada and the country? I'm an America First. I am a limited government states' rights gal. And some of the issues that I believe that are ever pressing for Nevada, I draw from a wealth of experience. We have a housing crisis. Our working class people can't afford to live here. That is a solution and a policy prescription that I am very eager to roll out to help solve for and increase home ownership and the American dream again. We have water and infrastructure issues when it comes to power. We produce 17% of the power that we need to run industry and keep people's homes powered. These are not sexy topics, but they're critical when it comes to our habitability. And right now, when I look at the composition of some of our representatives, they don't draw from the technical experience to really be poised to strategically negotiate on our behalf. And I believe that I uniquely bring that to the conversation.
We'll see where it goes from here. First, we have the primary, then the general. We'll see where it goes. Tera Anderson running as a Republican for Congressional District 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you.